Welcome to episode 3 of the OKTAGON MMA podcast, brought to you by Combat Sports UK. I'm Lewis Glover, and I am joined by the many-hatted man of OKTAGON MMA, fresh from his new home studio, all kitted out, all professional, no sound issues this week. What's going on,
There
Bryan?
you
How you
go.
doing, man?
Listen, brought to you also by coffee because you've got me out of bed, mate. I intentionally have carved a career for myself where I don't have to set an alarm. And then you've said 9 o'clock in the morning, we're going to do this. So this is second cup of coffee in. It's sponsored by whatever is in this. El Salvador is where the beans from this coffee come from. So thank you to El Salvador for sponsoring this podcast.
Well, I sincerely appreciate it. It makes me feel special. But 9 o'clock, mate, that's I'm almost ready for my lunch. How early I've been up. We were just chatting before we started recording about the plight of a newborn.
So you will have this plight to do. It's the 1st of December, which means the frigging elf has turned up today. All right. So you will have this to do. And if I warn you, start it as late as possible. We started it about 2 or 3 years old with Alice. And this is year 7 or 8 now. So I don't know how old my daughter is. That shows what sort of a parent I am. But the frigging elf is back. So we were up at 6:30 searching for the magic elf.
Brilliant. And it was all found and all happy, all's well.
Yeah, she's in the fireplace, which means I can't even light a fire tonight, mate. So I'm staring at this. No, Merry Christmas to everyone. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy.
Well, in today's show, we're going to be diving into Octagon 50, which is just an incredible card on tap. We thought,
listen, mate, we thought we were having a landmark event with the 3rd podcast. Octagon 50. What are we going to do for our 50th one, mate?
It's going to have
special, I reckon.
It's going to be very special. But before we dive into that, we haven't had an opportunity to catch up since Manchester. I had the opportunity to be there to cover the event for Combat Sports UK. And I've got to say, it was tremendous. The fights were electric. The personalities were great. Just an incredible experience. We were so well looked after. Shout out to Scott doing and Jacob doing a tremendous job there. But from your perspective and the organization's perspective, how did the night go? How did it play out? And in reflection, what are your thoughts?
Mate, it was it's almost dreamlike because there's so much gone into building it up and getting it ready for what it was. And also, it's like you said, man of many hats. My phone was going nonstop all the way through the events. It was very difficult. I had Laurie Smith, Paul Smith's wife, who'd been put in the wrong seats. So I was trying to fix that so that she could get close to the cage so she could be there for Paul Smith and Jake Quickenden. I had some craziness going off with something else backstage, and I had this. So halfway through, I had to stop myself and go, "Oh, we're here. Just breathe this in for." And it was actually that the was it the Paul Smith fight? No, it was the Frimpong and George one when they came out and the crowd went like crazy for George. Yes. It was, that was the moment I went, wow, this is, because that's when you see it all come together, because the TV shows, you could see everybody was invested in the fights. So, whether they were Team Frimpong or Team George or Team Jake or Team Paul. So for me, suddenly all these projects that have been a year in the making, you could see the effects that they had and that people really cared about the fight. So it was great, mate. Obviously the crowd is got to grow, and it will do. I think what we did find is the atmosphere was insane. Pavel and Andre came up to me afterwards and they were like, if that is what 5,000 UK fans sound like, what is it going to sound like when we do fill the arena? Because they were like, it was for that, they were worried that it wouldn't transmit. But I turn out, my gauge for most events is when something happens, I turn to my right and Pavel sits next to Andre. Andre's commentating and emceeing, so he's got the multiple hats as well. But you see Pavel, and he takes in the event. And I turned to look at him, and he was smiling, looking around. And I was like, "Okay, we're good. We are good. This is the start." And it was a great start, mate. I loved it.
Absolutely, and with the sort of all of the fanfare and ceremony around it, you could be forgiven for thinking this was it. This was the accomplishment. But far from it. It was this is the first of many events to take place in the UK as Octagon breaks into that market. And Newcastle and Birmingham were announced on that night as well, being with January and April. So there's plenty more to look forward to. And I've got to say as well, on the fans who were there were electric, and so much so that in a big space, AO Arena was ambitious. you
Huge.
could
Huge, mate.
you could have lost a lot given that the space wasn't full, but that didn't come across sitting cage side, and that didn't come across watching it back on the broadcast either. And as you said, eventually the game is to fill a place like that. But even when you go to Newcastle, when you go to Birmingham, and expect those numbers to grow, but in a tighter, smaller venue, the atmosphere is just going to blow the bloody roof off, and it's going to be unreal.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. And do you know what? I'm excited for UK fans as well. I keep saying this because the experience of an Octagon show, and you've been to ones outside of the UK, you've been in those big arenas where you've seen how the crowd are and, you know, what the atmosphere is like with 15, 20,000 people. That is going to happen for the UK. And I think I really think it will change the scene as far as being a fan, because you will look forward to these events. You will, and again, it won't just matter about the card or the title fights or the personalities on it. It'll be about being there. So yeah, it'll come. We're growing, and it was good to have you there as well, mate. You made the trip. I know you're from there, but you're based out in Hungary now. What was your favorite moment of the night? And you got to tell me that.
My favorite moment of the night was when George Staines won, and his whole tribe of people who come to support him going mad, and you could see through the crowd to all those people his dad. And it was like, on one hand, it was like, he's here, he's achieved it, like all of these years of work and sacrifice. And then it was like, oh, this is just the beginning for this kid. He is a monster. He is an absolute monster. England, we have a Khabib. He is just a dominant force on the ground, and he can impose his will seemingly on anyone. But I've got to, doff the cap to Mr. Frimpong as well, because he handled himself like an absolute gentleman after the fight and in the post-fight. And that was, that's what we love to see. Rivalries before, settled in the cage, and, friends and potential training partners after the fact as well.
We'll see.
We'll see.
With Frimpong again, like, he was obviously very upset at what happened in the cage, but I said it there, the show would not have been what it was without Dennis Frimpong. Correct. So, and he has always been a guy to talk the talk, and then he walks the walk. He tries to back it up, and he just came up against George. And I think the fight would have been different if the fight had happened in the house, as in the series. I think it could have been different, because I think George had the space to let Frimpong out of his head. Yeah. Whereas in that space, I mean, it was nonstop.
Right in there. He was right in his pocket 24/7.
I was there, and even like, I wasn't spending the nights in the house with him, but Frimpong was on everyone. And I mean, everyone, whether it was the sound guy, whether it was me, whether it was Pavel, whether it was Andre, it was relentless. So living with it. So I think, that those mind games would have worked differently and maybe had an effect on the fight if it had happened. But that little gap that George had to go and breathe and be at home and do all that, I think that changed things. But it was great. What a moment. And Frimpong will be back. He's already on social media picking fights with anyone. So awesome.
Brilliant. And the one last thing I want to mention before we do move on to Octagon 50 was, and I guess I was surprised by it, and then it took me a second for me to process it. But one of the things that Andre said is, we will sell out a venue like this, but we are not giving away free tickets to make it look like it's full. And you see other organizations do that, still doing that to this day. Some big 3-letter organizations, maybe going on over in Ireland this coming week, giving out free tickets or cutting tickets down to a couple of euros just to fill out the numbers for the sake of having the numbers. And it's very clear that is not how Andre and Pavel want to do business.
It's never been the model. It hasn't. I mean, the product is quality. The experience is, it's great. And I think, there's a bit of a culture of, it's one thing we've got to get through in the UK is, that happens. Either tickets come out for free or they go for stupidly cheap, which, it's different business models. So people do what they do. Yeah. But Pavel and Andre, they're even when we were, knowing what the numbers were going to be, because we know day to day, you can refresh the ticket thing, you can see what you're doing. There was no panic, there was nothing, because they said, look, these are the first fans, they will come back, and then we'll have the next, and
they'll bring people with them, and
exactly, and that's how it's growing in every other territory. So. And you can't knock them. Look at what we did in Cologne last week. We've been in Germany for 16 months, and we sold out 19,000 seats in Cologne, in a territory where people said it's going to be impossible to do arena shows. They literally said, Germany is so against mixed martial arts, you'll never be able to do the arena shows you do there. And within 16 months, we've sold the Festhalle 3 times, Munich, Audi Dome, Oberhausen, and then of course Cologne as well, breaking that record. So you got to trust them. If that's how they do it, that's what they do. And yeah, I'll grab those coattails, and we'll see in 16 months and see how many tickets we sell for the arenas then. So it's exciting.
Absolutely brilliant. And speaking of brilliant, heading back to Ostrava on the 9th of December, headlined by not one, but two unbelievable title fights. And the cards in Ostrava previously have not disappointed. And there's a vibe about this town, this city, these fans that's unique, that's special. Why, tell people a little bit about that. What drives that? What makes this a unique experience compared to some of the other places?
So I'm going to say this in the nicest possible way, but Ostrava is an absolute shithole. Okay. But I mean that in a way that, because I come from Huddersfield, which is a working class town, which is, ex-mining town, that sort of community, factories, that type of stuff. Ostrava is that. It is a hard town. They keep using the phrase toughest city in the Czech Republic. It is so, I mean, you're there, even the architecture, it's all factories or old buildings, or, the skyline isn't a Prague, it isn't a Cologne, it isn't a Berlin, and the people are the same. They are hard-working people. They are, they're fighters. They are through and through. And you look at the type of fighter that comes out. Then on this card, I think we've got Rashka, who's from Ostrava, Kuznik, Andrei Novotny, obviously from Ostrava. You've got Jan Shiroki as well. And it just creates this place where these events, they mean something to these people. Like this is their World Cup. This is their this is theirs. Andre is from there. He makes it a very big point of every year we do our big press conference, which is coming this year, the OKTAGON Time press conference. That's where we heard about Tip Sport Game Changer for the first time. That's where they talk about all the plans for the next 12 months. So it's almost like, Ostrava feels special to us and we feel special to them. So when the events are there, and it's the reason they did the first Tip Sport Game Changer, OKTAGON 40 there, it's just electric. Cosma's from there as well. So there you go. You got all these really hard fighters that are exciting. And what that creates, and again, I said that in the nicest possible way, it is a shithole. But because of that, the people are so grateful and they give back what we give them. And because we keep going back there, we do these big events, it creates something magic. And that I see it on this card. Like sometimes I'm researching cards, I'm looking at little fights, so I'm thinking that could be good, that could be good. But there feels like there's going to be an insane night of crazy fights, finishes, upsets, people that might be written off by some people on the outside could rise to the top. The title fights, I think both of them could go either way. I truly believe that both of them, that the main event, Nico Samsonidse versus Lozan Keita, for me, that might be the fight with the most talented fighters in the cage that I've ever called. That's huge. Two young guys who are so good everywhere. Two young guys who are still on the rise. It's not like they've achieved something and they're much respect to Ivan Buchinger. Like he's been around the world, he's claimed all these titles, but everybody's kind of waiting for this drop off because he's done so much already. But these two are connecting and colliding at a point where they are both, potentially at their peak, maybe at their best. And I can't pick it. Everyone's the betting odds are going with Keita, but if you know Samsonidse, like if you watch him fight, he's so good everywhere. He's so dangerous. He is so calm in the fight. He's an awkward physical presence as well at that weight as well. He's long, he's tall, he's rangy, and he's so fucking good, mate. He is so good. So that is, that's the cherry on top, but the whole card is full of diamonds, mate.
It really is. And sticking with this main event, we've got former champ Lozan Keita having excelled at both 145 and 155 pounds, your featherweight and lightweight. And, in his last bout out, he unfortunately lost to Samsonidse's countryman, Samsonidse, with the foot injury. Samsonidse unified the division. He's now vacated, gone down to 135 pound. So it's all happening. It's absolutely musical chairs at the tops of these electric divisions, which is why we've got a vacant 145 and a vacant 155 belt all up for grabs on the line tonight. What was interesting, and you said both of these guys are sort of getting to the peak of their powers. Maybe they're already. Keita's turned down an offer from the UFC because he likes what's going on in Octagon. He's, happy with the money. He's happy with being a big star in Europe. So that speaks volumes to the level of what this title fight is going to be at. And I'm the same as you. I can't pick it. But what I think is crucial for everyone to know about this fight is Keita's backstory. And you know this better than anyone. So please tell everyone a little bit about where he comes from, what he's done, and how he's gotten to, fighting for world titles on Octagon MMA from humble beginnings, let's say.
It's an insane story, and again, you can jump on the YouTube channel and watch the little documentaries we've done about him. But he comes from Belgium, obviously, and he grew up in a very hard part. Gang culture was there, all that stuff, all the trappings that come. And yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but before the Karo Rishavi fight, I think it was 8 weeks before, he was still in prison. So he was still in jail, and he had been in a street fight with one of his friends. So again, something had boiled over, and it happened a while ago. He'd been in this street fight with one of his friends, and again, you got to look at the culture there. It's all about territories. It's very small, that world. Everything matters. So your stock is dependent on how you look on that street. And he did what he did. Went to prison, and it's his mum. His mum was. He said he remembers his mum in. Like so upset because she has done everything she can to try and give him the best life possible, brought him up in this very hard place, worked as hard as she's done. And he said that was the moment. He said that was the moment that I realized I got to change. So he came to Octagon straight off, like 8 weeks after coming out of prison. And he did what he did to Karo Rishavi, which is blitz him in under a round. Like, it was one of the most devastating debuts we have seen. It was also his first fight at lightweight. It was every other fight he'd had been at welterweight. So he'd come down from welterweight to lightweight, done that. And that was the start. Then he had the Paradisa fight. And again, you can see it in the emotions. When he claimed that belt, he wasn't just crying at the end of that because he got that interim title. He wasn't just crying because, it was a big moment. It was letting loose everything that had happened and that could have happened. If he had stayed on that path, he would probably still be in prison. He might be dead. He would definitely not be doing what he does now, which is, if you see him inspiring young people in and around his community, if you ever are around Lozen Keita in Belgium at the events or anywhere in Europe, he always brings a huge crowd with him. And within it, there are lots of young kids that come from the same background, and they look up to him like he is God. But because of that, he is inspiring them to not do what he did, not make the mistakes he made. So he is a unique personality. He has a crazy story. He turned his life around through what he's done and the performances he puts on in the cage. But the legacy he will lead is, without, I don't even know if he recognizes this, but he is stopping a lot of young people in and around his community from his background with the same problems and the same the world against them type feeling and attitude. He is turning their lives as well. So not all champions need belts. He just likes to collect them as well. But he's something special. And when you see the reaction he gets anywhere in the world, anywhere he goes, he gets an amazing response. So that's just testament to who he is.
Unbelievable. The transformative potential of mixed martial arts and combat sports in general is something special.
It's the best bit, mate. And also, like, credit to Keita's mum. What a lady she is to be that much of a force in his life, that she, even through those emotions and having to see him hit rock bottom, has been the rock he has clung on to. And there's a great thing about her. So she goes live on Instagram when he's fighting. So if anyone wants to follow Keita's mum, she goes live and she is crazy. She is absolutely wild. But again, we always look at the individuals when it's combat sports, because it's two men or women in the cage, and one of them get their hands raised, or all the accolades that come. but it takes more than, sometimes it's not even a dad that makes the man. Sometimes it's, it's testament to the families and the support network, and also, the luck that he had, that he found the gym that he's from. And again, it's just geographical. It's just the one that's near him, but they're training under Yunus Lamrov and people like that. It's a tiny gym and it is full of killers, absolute monsters. So I'm sure we'll see more coming out of there soon.
Brilliant. Let's move on to the co-main event, because we've got two veterans here. One especially, it's Ronald Paradisa against Ivan Buchinger, who is really just one of the finest of wines. It just does not stop with him. He gets better and better, and just when you think, okay, surely time, Father Time is undefeated, as the saying goes, you think it's going to catch up with him, and he just proves it wrong again and again. And it would not shock me at all if he was to be able to get it done and claim yet another title in just a ridiculous and storied mixed martial arts career.
It's a phenomenal career. And also, if you look at his record, this will be his 50th pro fight. He's finished, 34 of his opponents, 41 wins. He's finished 30. And we're not just talking, regional scene. M1 Global, one of the nastiest divisions coming out of Russia. He's claimed the titles out there. Look at the likes of the people that he's not just beaten, but he's finished. Now Gibbons in there. You look at some Turo Ragimov. Oh my God, Mikhail Milutin. You look at all these. He's beaten Stevie Ray in Cage Warriors. He's had that belt before. He's done. It's just one of these ridiculous CVs. Then he got blitzed by Lozan Keita, lost his title. Then he had to vacate the other belt because he had to have surgery. And again, this is when you think, all those miles on the clock, what's that going to do? Then he came back in the Samsonidse Stadium against Tunkara. Now, when we did the weigh-ins, because it was two events on the one night, they did the sort of face-offs for the second event on the Friday night up above the stadium.
Yep.
The only person who got a massive cheer, and we're talking about a card with Keita on it, with people like that on it, the only person in the Czech Republic who got the biggest cheer of the night was Ivan Buchinger. Then he faced Tunkara, and everyone forgets that first round was not good. That first round was really not good, even up until the point where he gets the finish. It wasn't like a vintage bookie that he managed to pull a win out of it and the finish. But I watched it and I was like, oh, that's, he used to just carve through people like that. So you asked that. And then he faced Donald in his last fight. Donald, this young up and coming absolute monster in the 145 division, stepped up to face Bookie in 155. Still looked physically bigger than Bookie and younger, hungrier, arguably. And then Bookie just first round sort of controlled, looked good, and the second round it was like somebody in his corner said, "There's food out the back if you're hungry," because it's like he had no respect for the power, the grappling, the wrestling, and he beat the hell out of Donald, beat the hell out of this young guy. And you look at the likes of the people that Donald had beaten and faced. So that for me was like, oh, he's back. Maybe that first fight was just feeling it out, getting back into the rhythm, getting into fight shape, and all the stuff that might come with it. But the performance against Donald has made me wonder about this fight against Paradisa, because before that, you look at Paradisa, 4-fight win streak, starching the likes of Andrew Fisher on the feet. Now, Fisher, I rate his boxing highly in mixed martial arts, and he got pieced up by Paradisa. However, Paradisa, this will be his third shot at the title. And there's something when you sometimes see fighters get to the point where, it really matters and they can't quite put it together. And that has been the story of Ronald Paradisa. First time with Ivan Buchinger, second time with Lozan Keita. But will he pull it all together? For me, I think he is in the form of his life. I think he is as dangerous as any fighter out there. For him to make lightweight, I find ridiculous. Every time I see him step on the scale, and he is huge, I see him step on the scale in the morning, and then in the evening, he's like 12 kilograms heavier, which is ridiculous in less than 8-9 hours. But it's about, can he overcome who he is facing in the cage? Because when you look across the cage and you see, ex-fighter, you're not intimidated. But when you see Buchinger, when you see that legend that you've watched since a kid growing up, doing everything that you wanted to do, holding the belts that you could only dream of, what does that do to you inside your head? And will that have an effect on him? So this is his best chance, but it's against probably the toughest opponent he could face, even though they faced before and Booking won it in 2 minutes 20 seconds or something. But yeah, it's insane. Again, I can't pick either of these. I cannot tell you who will win, or like my gut is not telling you who could win the featherweight one, and the same with the lightweight. This I think depends on which version of Bookie turns up and whether Ronnie can handle it mentally.
Which just shows you these are proper matchups. These are not gimmies one way or the other. These are going to be absolute.
There's none of them, mate. Come on.
I know, but they're absolute bangers. And I just want to go back to booking his return fight against Tunkara, because as you said, he had to overcome adversity. Then he looked better against Donald, looked great against Donald. That coming through the fire lets you know that he still wants to compete at the highest levels. He's still got that fire. He's still got that desire, because it would have been very easy for him to go, you know what? I tried to come back. I've achieved all of this, had a surgery, maybe it's time to hang him up and move on to something else. But he bit down on his mouthpiece, went through the fire and said, you know what? Let's have it. And he's put himself right back to add another trinket to his already ridiculous collection. So going to be sensational. Well, there's many fights on this card which are going to be great. We can't go through all of them as usual. There's just too many. Got a highlight for UK fans. James Lewis is going to be fighting, who just does not know how to be in a boring fight. Of all of his career fights, only one has ever gone to the judges. He's either taking you out or he's getting taken out in the process. People will be familiar with him now because of Stage to the Cage and him training and working with Paul Smith out of Black Ledge MMA. How much are you looking forward to this one?
It's great. And James called for this fight. So he was supposed to fight in Bratislava. His opponent came off. Excuse me. Marek Bartel was supposed to fight as well. And then he ended up fighting Oli Magna. Do you remember that? So Oli Magna's opponent came off. Bartel's opponent came off. The night before, Magna, who is a middleweight, agreed. Bartel, who is a welterweight, agreed to fight Oli Magna at middleweight in an underground rules fight, like on 12 hours notice. That says all you need to know about Marek Bartel. James Lewis was on the vlog with Josh cage side for that. And afterwards he was like, I really fancy that fight. He said, I think Bartel is, legendary. He's a great fighter. You're not going to be in a boring fight with him. So he called for it. He got it. It's insane. There's James Lewis and there's Danny Vinny on this card as well. And I looked at the numbers. They have got 54 pro fights between them. Only 4 of those have ever gone to a decision between them. That's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Those numbers are ridiculous. And again, Marek Bartel, a legend. He was the first guy ever to step in the Octagon cage. His feet were the first to step in on Octagon Challenge Season 1. The first guy ever to walk into the cage. So it means a lot for him to be here at Octagon 50. So I love that fight. Again, for it to be so low down the card, I think this event's going to kick off in a ridiculous fashion, and I can just see it building into absolute mayhem.
Absolutely. One, another name to look out from the UK, Amari Diedrich, former Glory kickboxer, right? Coming in 4-1 in MMA so far. And he's taking on, a veteran of the game in Mate Kertész out of Hungary. But yeah, watch this one, because he's going to be. He does not know how to take a step backwards, and he's not going to be looking to hold you up against the cage and grind a result out here.
He is going to be a fan favorite, man. This guy is, like he said it in his little video he did for Octagon. He just said the word violence about 72 times in less than 30 seconds, and that's what he is. He's pure violence. Like, he comes from the old school. So he was at Rough House in Nottingham with the likes of Ross Pearson, Dan Hardy, Paul Daly, those lot all coming through there. That when he was a kid, and he came up through there. He's then earned this career in Glory, which is phenomenal. He won I think the 6-man tournament or the 8-man tournament, whatever it was. And dominated that. I've called one of his fights in LFL before. And, he's more well-rounded than people think. He trains at Fourth Dimension at Nottingham, which is a great gym. It's some of the hardest sparring you're going to get there. And then alongside that, he goes down to Team Renegade. He's one of the sparring partners for Leon Edwards, Akon Wanless, Fabian Edwards, that Tom Breeze. So he's getting it in, and he is physically a specimen. He loves to fight. Like, man, he is there's something about, there's some fighters where, you know, you just get close to them and they feel different. Their presence is, you can feel their presence. He is one of those guys. And for him to face Mate Kurtesh first is great, because that's what he wants. He hasn't come here to tiptoe his way into the division. Kurtesh has fought for the title twice, faced Cosma twice, faced Jungwirth twice, beaten Jungwirth twice, beaten lost to Bojan Viličković, but again, has faced the best of the best in a division. This will be his 14th fight for Octagon. So, you know, for Amari, it's a massive, massive step up as far as experience and, you know, personality, or even, you know, fan favorite in Octagon. But this Amari Deirdrick is real, mate. He is real, and I'm excited to see what he delivers, because I think he's built for stadiums. I think he is built for, you know, the big shows. I think he's just been on the smaller ones and been doing what he does outside the glory, that is. And I think it's a great fight. And this is the test. If he can pass, and I don't want to ever call Kurtesh a gatekeeper, but because he's been against so many top welterweights, you have to say, look, it's a good litmus test for where you sit in that division. So if he can be somebody that can put a performance in against someone like that, then that's one hell of a debut.
Certainly is. And as you said, physical specimen, he looks like a comic book character.
He's a triangle. He's literally his leg kicks are amazing, but I don't think he's ever done leg day. But he'd
never make weight. If he did leg day, he couldn't. He'd have to cut one off to make 170. Oh, brilliant. Right, Bryan, let's wrap things up. This has been excellent as always. Always love jumping on to preview these cards with you. It's going to be brilliant. Why don't you let everyone know, where they can watch it?
They can watch it, mate, in England, in UK, Channel 4 for free, buddy. There you go. You can click on the streaming service. You can watch it there, DAZN or Octagon.tv. Tune in. There's some bangers. I'm going to point out two more, mate. So Vladimir Lengal versus Samuel Bark, a ridiculous fight. Lengal, a world-class box, 12-0 in boxing champion, karate champion, kickboxing champion, fought 11 times in 2022 in kickboxing, boxing, and MMA, went 10-1. Broke the jaw of Karol Rishavi with a spinning elbow in that as well, against Samuel Bark, who is number 1 ranked K1 fighter or Muay Thai fighter over in Sweden. That's a great fight. Peñas is back as well, undefeated in the Octagon cage, 7 wins, 6 by knockout against Oli Magner as well. So tune in, just watch it, mate. You're going to watch it, aren't you?
Of course. That's a no-brainer.
You have to, mate.
Have to.
You have to.
Can't bloody wait for it. And we'll be back with episode 4 as we look ahead to what will be another stacked card with Octagon 51. Actually, you know what? Before I go, I wanted to ask you this. We sort of touched on it at the start. 50, bit of a milestone. Is that sort of being discussed within the company? People, is it time for reflection, or is there so much going on? Looking ahead to 24, it's kind of like, this is great, but like maybe we'll celebrate when we get to 100. What's the buzz with Pavel and Andre?
So the Octagon Christmas party is the week of. So we've got some announcements in house for that. But there's also the Octagon Time press conference, which will look forward at the next year. So that will be some big announcements as to what is to come. However, Octagon 50, there will be some surprises and there will be some celebrations. There will be a little sprinkle of magic for you all. So stay tuned to that. So I can't tell you what's going to happen, mate. I can't, because I don't know. Andre and Pavel have said it's going down, but I never doubt them. So all I'm going to do is bring this.
Brilliant. I love it. Thanks very much, Bryan. Talk to you soon.
Take care, mate.